stresses that public confidence in the justice system is already hanging by a thread. Well, joining us now on the line is Shenilla Mohamed, who's the Executive Director of Amnesty International South Africa, to help us unpack the implications of this latest development and what accountability should really look like. Shenilla, thanks so much indeed for joining us. Always good to talk to you.
Morning, Peter, and good morning to your viewers and listeners.
So let's start with your reaction to President Ramaphosa's decision to set up this commission. What concerns you the most about this move?
Well, Peter, I can't say we were surprised. I mean, this is exactly what the president does. But I think the biggest concern we have is yet again another commission that is going to cost millions, if not billions. I mean, Zondo cost the country billions. And yet we never see any action. There have been no top-level prosecutions. There has been no real follow-up. We saw that with Marikana. We saw that with Zondo. It's like a cycle that continues. And our worry is that as time goes by, things are going to worsen. We already have a horrendous crime situation in the country, and criminal syndicates are going to take more and more hold of the country, and people will start taking the law into their own hands, which they've already done, as we've seen time and time again in South Africa.
As Amnesty International, your statement mentions the urgency of lives at risk. Could you explain how failures within law enforcement are putting lives in danger?
Well, Peter, we have been following and documenting cases of human rights defenders, Abashlali, Mamfikile Chanje, who was an activist, an environmental activist, and these people were assassinated. Many Abashlali, which is the Slum Dwellers Association, talks about at least 26 of their members who have been assassinated in recent years, and yet there have been, I think, just one prosecution in all of this time. Now, the problem that we're facing is the president in his speech on Sunday did not make any mention about the political assassinations task team that General Mkhwanazi very clearly stated had been deliberately disbanded. We would have liked to see the president at least give us some reassurances that some of those systems and those task teams that were put into place in order to investigate these high-level killings or these killings of human rights defenders would still be continuing. And yet we are left with more questions than answers after the president spoke. So we are still wondering, is the task team in place? Will they continue with their investigations? We saw after Marikana, very few prosecutions took place. Very few of the recommendations were followed. And so, what we're saying is that innocent South Africans are dying. Women are dying on a daily basis with high levels of violence. And yet, one of the things that the police are really terrible at doing is gathering forensic evidence at a scene of a crime. So therefore, what happens is that the dockets go to the NPA. They cannot be prosecuted. Now, SAPS already has problems. There were already problems in SAPS without this high level of corruption that is adding to the lack of skills that exists within SAPS.
So what practical steps should the president take right now to start restoring public trust and ensure justice, in your view?
Well, I think, the problem with setting up a commission and then just stepping aside, which is what he's done all the time, is that people know from past experience that even if he says 3 months, 6 months, we're not sure we're even going to get those reports. Zondo Commission went on and on and on. I think the president could have looked at the evidence or appointed the NPA to look at the existing evidence that General Mkhwanazi and see whether or not there were cases that could have immediately been prosecuted. I think that he was very quick to dismiss the DA deputy minister, but I'm pretty, we don't know. Obviously, the evidence has to be tested, but, perhaps there was a way where the Minister of Police could have been fired rather than suspended. I do understand due process, but I do think the president's lack of action, immediate action, is what is eroding the public's confidence in him as the president, as well as in the institutions. And just one final thing, Peter. I mean, you set up a commission, but the independent investigative unit of the police, which is IPID, was set up to investigate the police. And yet we're having to set up commission. So what it shows us is that the institutions, the judicial institutions in this country, are not functioning. They are eroded, and the president has to fix them. I mean, who else is going to?
As Amnesty International, have you had reason to believe that because the Provincial Police Commissioner Konazi pointed a finger at the judicial system itself, actually beyond the police and politicians. Have you, as Amnesty International, had reason to believe, see that the judiciary itself had been compromised?
Well, to be honest, Peter, we haven't investigated or looked at that. But if you recall, General Mkhwanazi pointed to one particular person that he said was in Gauteng, and I think that that makes it pretty easy for the president or the NPA or the investigating authorities to look at. But from our side, I cannot sit here and tell you that we know or don't know. We have not looked at this matter in depth, so we can't say that it's compromised. But I do think that South Africa has got amazing judges. We have amazing police people. There are people out there who really want to see the country work and flourish. But I think they're being hampered by a couple of people who are really hell bent on getting gains for corruption and other things. And I think, the problem we're facing as well, Peter, is that we have a political system in this country where it's all about political survival. I mean, we've seen that in Zimbabwe, we've seen that in other countries. So it always becomes about surviving the next election. And none of these politicians ever puts the rights of the people ahead of their surviving politics. And I think that is the in a way, the model in Africa that really is problematic, because it goes from one election to the other, and people get instrumentalized, people's rights are abused, people, don't get the basic rights that they're entitled to. And this is all about politics, power, and money.
Shenilla, we're going to have to leave it there, but thank you very, very much indeed for giving us the view of Amnesty International South Africa on these developments. Thanks for your time. That was Shenilla Mohamed, Executive Director of Amnesty International South Africa, sharing her organization's position on the newly appointed Commission of Inquiry into South Africa's law enforcement agencies, as well as the judiciary, I believe, and what needs to be done to ensure it leads to real change.
New day, new stories. Start your morning right with Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
South African Social Security Agency, or SASSA CEO Themba Matlou, says that ongoing reviews have uncovered alarming cases of fraud and system abuse. Matlou says